hope see me or hear me as well. John Marks, let me know that you. I am. This is spinning.
I can hear you.
You can hear me on Skype, but on YouTube, it's. You can hear me on Skype. I'm going to do one thing to clear that will clear it up. I'm going to on the theory that it's just my screen that's blurry and not yours. And so here we go. Yeah, and my theory is
my
correct.
My screen that's blurry and not yours.
My theory is somewhat correct. All right, let's have at it. All right, we are here. Welcome everybody.
Okay. What on the phone? I don't have anything going on in the house. I turned the TV off. I turned everything off.
Okay, great. Because I'm great.
You want me to see if I can lower the volume on the phone?
No, you're just fine. I got some feedback there, but I don't have any feedback for some reason.
Okay.
But yeah, it's something on your phone that's providing the feedback. But whatever. That's life. Hey everybody, welcome to Zenny62, and John Mark says hello, and Barry Lee says hello, and Eric Young says hello. Everybody, can you hear us? Nancy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you very much, Zenny. And yourself?
I am outstanding. I am just fine. It's just fantastic. Okay.
Fantastic. All right.
Now, one thing I'm going to say is, Nancy, introduce yourself. I want to hear you describe yourself rather than me describe you.
Well, someone that doesn't like really talking about self, but more of a doer. Mm-hmm. I'm Nancy Sidebotham. I've lived in Oakland since 1964. I've been involved in politics since 1982. I've run for District 6 a number of times. Ran for the mayor 4 years ago. Ran for at large 2 years ago. And again, I'm running for mayor this time around, and staying very involved in my neighborhood, my community, my city, because I care and love, and over the years, seeing it dwindled down to needing a lot of help and not getting it. And the leadership keeps getting poorer and poorer at the expense of the citizens that live in Oakland that get nothing in return for what they vote for and what they continue to pay out through their property taxes, etc.
What was it that?
So that's my reason for running. That's my reason for staying involved and for continuing to fight for what's right and to fight for the changes that Oakland desperately needs to be a city that's on the map, that can compete with the surrounding communities and cities that have the businesses, the jobs, the leadership, where Oakland continues to fail and continue to get itself in trouble.
Hey, I want to get
that's what it is.
I want to get your comments. First of all, on first of all, there's one thing I want to just get out of the way. What was the aha moment this time around? Because you ran for mayor in 2014 and I believe in 2010 as well. But what was the
No.
Oh, not in 2010.
Just 2014.
That's right. I stand corrected. What was the aha moment? 2010, Gene Kwan was elected as mayor, by the way, folks. What was the aha moment this time around that caused you to run?
You know, I never stopped believing that Oakland needed change, where we all hoped that the new mayor that came in after Gene Kwan would make a difference. Unfortunately, the city was run by Jerry Brown. That's why Claudia Capio was here for the number of years she was here, because she's the one that ran the city administrator's office and continued to run Oakland. And her baggage that she brought from when Jerry was mayor way back when only continued to hurt Oakland. And we have, since she has left, because she had to leave because this is Jerry's last year in office and she needed to get her job back at the state level to make sure she got her retirement, etc. This is where Oakland started going downhill, is because we've had no leadership in the last this administration, the one before that, and the one before that. I mean, for the last four administrations, starting with Jerry Brown, things started going downhill because it became administrations for a select few, mostly developers, versus the people that live in Oakland that continue to be gouged and asked to pay and pay and pay and still see nothing changing and the same old hum, busted cars, wheels, homeless issues, etc., as other cities continue to kick the homeless out of their cities, and they all come to Oakland, and Oakland doesn't have the means to handle any of this because we don't have the leadership to do that. So I've never lost. If we had had a good leader and Oakland was running right on point, I would not be in this race because then I would be backing the person running and leading the city. But unfortunately, we have no leadership from the city administrator's office or the mayor's office, or the council for that matter.
One of our viewers, John Marks, asked this question. He wants to know what your plans are for Oakland's homeless, and is the village in Oakland a short or long-term plan in your view?
The homeless issue is an issue that is national as well as county. Oakland doesn't have the means to take care of the homeless. We have been paying in through Measure, I believe it's KK, all these letters that we have for measures. I don't know which one's which at this point anymore. But money has been paid in to start building and stuff, and still nothing is happening. The homeless, unfortunately, are coming from all other cities. Berkeley is in the midst of kicking some of the homeless out of their city, and Berkeley used to be the standard for homeless to come when they came, for the disabled, etc., went to Berkeley because Berkeley had their arms wide open for them, and they have since changed and become more conservative. And Oakland, unfortunately, has never been set up to welcome anything that they can't handle. The earthquake proved that, the firestorm proved that, and Oakland keeps taking on more projects and yet not fixing the basics that people pay for in this town. As for the homeless being helped, I think that the county needs to take the responsibility on for this because that's what the county is supposed to address. That's where Health and Human Services is strong, Social Services is strong. Oakland doesn't have the means or the background or the personnel to handle any of this.
And I'm going to get some comments here. There is Barry Lee. I'm going to come back to your question, Barry Lee. I got John Marks out of the way. Tom Marks, making more of a statement than a question, he says, Oakland needs gentrification laws. 20 more years of this, and Oakland will be a white city, not multicultural, but you'll never hear these politicians speak on it. And then Nee Auckland says, what's the talk today? Nee Auckland, I'm introducing Nancy Sidebotham, a friend of mine for quite some time now, running for Oakland mayor, and for 2018, if you didn't know what year it was, by the way. And then we'll get to Eric Young's question. Eric Young, which allows us to segue into the other part of this, says, Eric Young says, hey, Nancy, I hope you will tenaciously fight to keep our Oakland Raiders in Oakland where they belong. Nancy, what's your view on what's happened with the Raiders, the A's, and the Warriors in sports in Oakland in terms of infrastructure?
Okay, can I first answer the gentrification? I know it was a statement and not a question.
Yeah, this is your
platform. But the issue with gentrification started with the government opening our doors through the Bg5 program and allowing people to come in here and buy up property from abroad, and that's where all the gentrification is happening. The fact that Oakland is not fighting to close down all the homes that are in foreclosure right now. Oakland doesn't have a housing issue as they keep putting out there. What they have is a problem with they are not fighting the banks and helping people through the foreclosure problem. And this is opening it up for auctions and people coming in here from abroad buying up the houses. It's not all whites buying the houses. Trust me. The Bg5 program opened a real mess in this country with allowing people to come in here and purchasing and starting businesses and getting their visa papers and then citizenship papers, depending on how they set up their program.
Can you elaborate on that? Can you expand on that? Explain what that program is for those who don't know.
The Bg5 program is a government program that allows foreigners who will pay $500,000 apiece to get visas to come into this country. And then if they set up a business, whether it's a real estate business under an LLC program, or they buy a building such as iMagnons or the Tribune Tower, et cetera, which was done in the past, and hire locals, which does not necessarily mean people of color, but maybe people of their nationality, then they qualify in 5 years to get their citizenship papers without going through the main process that everybody else would have to go through. And they do that for their whole family if they have $500,000 for each of their children and family members if they want to bring them into this country and set up a citizenship. And what it's doing is it's allowing people to come in here and buy up our land and our country without the rest of us having a say in it. All for greed.
Is this something that, in your estimation, is contributing to our affordable housing problem?
Oh yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Houses are being brought up right and left. I mean, one of the problems is people come in here from abroad, buy up the housing and stuff, and then they leave it vacant, or they raise the rent so dramatically that people are losing their roofs over their heads because they can't pay the rent. I mean, houses around here are going for $4,000 a month. What is wrong with this picture?
Say that one more time as far as the cost, please.
I said $4,000 a month. If you go on Zillow and you start looking at what the rents are and you sign up and you find out what houses are selling for and how much a studio is going for or a small one bedroom, I mean, it's outrageous. And the market's going to crash eventually. But in the meantime, people, they can barely afford, because the jobs aren't that plentiful. And yes, the dot-commers are making all this money and stuff. But the unfortunate thing is that the people that have lived here for years are being pushed out because they can't pay the outrageous rents or the mortgages that people are demanding to keep them in their homes. And the city's doing nothing about this.
On the other hand, I'm going to ask a question a friend of mine asked, who actually is involved in Oakland, but I'm not going to mention the person's name. But the friend said, where are they getting all this money? So my question is, does anyone know where this money is coming from? I mean, foreign, one thing, but I mean, what are the foreigners doing to get that money, to bring it here in the Bay Area?
That has to do with all the jobs that we've allowed to go overseas that have put our people out of jobs and out of business. That's where the steel mills have gone. That is where making pencils have gone. That is where the iPhones that are made for 99 cents in China and are selling for $1,000 here. Come on. And I mean, I'm exaggerating the 99 cents. I'm just saying that we have lost all our hold in this country and our homeless and stuff. It's based on people allowing jobs and opportunities to go overseas to come in and take over this country versus us staying here and fighting for it. And that needs to change. We need to start standing up and electing people that are going to stand up to what is happening and take back our country so that we start protecting our own and stop relying on others, because greed has become the number one drive on how things are done today and not the human factor.
I'm curious, is another part of that possibly those foreign nationals being part of the tech community?
Tech community, that's part of it. I mean, the government's allowed people to come in and work in the tech community with special visas and stuff over the years and stuff, and yet our educational system does not back up educating our people right here in this country to fill these jobs. We've got one of the poorest educational systems in the country. We don't have anybody. I mean, we don't even teach government studies anymore. We don't teach the use of the history is not even taught. We have changed how we educate and allow people to learn. I mean, right now because everybody's on computers. One of the worst things we could have done is start putting computers in schools, because you've taken the process of thinking and doing and being able to write out of the hands of the children and strangling the teachers not being able to teach because the computers are the ones that are leading the way, and that's hurting us drastically. So that way, it's driving everybody from overseas to come into this country because they're educated. I'll give you a good example. United Airlines does not hire American blacks, and they don't hire them because they're not educated. And this is a quote from a friend who works for United. And who they are hiring are Africans, people from Trinidad, people from Haiti, because they're educated. This is a problem, and people need to talk about it, and that needs to be put out there. And United is not the only company doing that.
Are you saying, is that the maintenance base? Or, because, I mean, full disclosure.
This is anybody. No, this is anybody being hired by United. They will not hire American blacks because educated to do the jobs.
Well, the reason I respond, Nancy, is, I mean, I know this, but full disclosure, I've flown United for free since I was 6.
Right.
And so I don't know that aspect of United. I know a lot of African Americans who work for United who are African and Black, So I've never heard that before. I just have to, I have to defend my company.
This was told to me by one of their African American workers who's been there for almost 30 years. So this is not, and I asked a couple of people in the city having to do with hiring through the ceasefire program, et cetera, and they admitted to it. But there's other companies that'll hire one or two that will hire one or two, but not filling the area that United could fill by hiring a bunch of people to do the work and work on the planes and clean and stuff. So this did not come from me. This came from somebody that works for United that told me this. And when I asked the city about it, it was backed up.
Hey, so let's talk about how, given the problems you've identified, how do you propose to solve them as mayor? And then, of course, we have the sports questions that are outstanding. So I want to sort of bring around back to that when we can.
Well, the first thing that needs to be done is that we have a city that's not educated in the sense that they are just told what they need to be told. The coverage in the newspapers is covered by just whatever it needs to be put out there, and it's more sensationalism versus what's actually happening in the community and how people can get involved. That's part of the problem, is people want to see change, people want to get involved and help, but they don't know what's going on and why it's going on, and that's part of the problem. And the first thing as mayor is I would work to change that, where you go out to the community and you start educating people about what Oakland is all about. It's like crime. All of a sudden, you'll have somebody saying, oh, crime's gone down in Oakland. Well, if you know the way crime happens in the Bay Area, when crime goes down in one city, it's popping up in another city. It moves around. And it's done because maybe they're putting more peace officers in one city and causing issues where, you're sort of strangleholding the activity, and then it starts up in Vallejo, or it starts up in Antioch, or it starts in Pittsburgh, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then soon later, it comes right back here and starts all over again. So it's a round-robin thing when it comes to crime. So people don't understand that. They seem to think that all this crime that's happening in Oakland is constantly happening. No, it's not. It's regulated by the gangs and by the people that are doing the crime because they know how to play the game and how to move it around based on what force is being put down on top of it in order to curtail the crime. So it's never going to go away as long as we don't have jobs. We have no hope in this town. We have no jobs for anybody. And yes, there are jobs, but you know something? Not everybody's going to go to college. And to raise somebody saying that you've got to go to college to be somebody, I mean, this is wrong. We are raising people now who are not going to be able to get jobs because robots are taking over everything. What is wrong with this picture? And nobody is screaming about this. Nobody is standing and taking a stand saying, look, we can't have, right now they just made a bike on the news tonight with, what do you call those things that make it on the computer with plastic and stuff, whatever 3D, those machines are called?
3D modeling, yeah.
Yeah, and this is what you've now just got a couple of people that will not get jobs because now you've got a computer doing the work for them. So unless you start bringing jobs back, Oakland is a city that passed the law years ago because it's a union city, not allowing big boxes into Oakland. Yet you go to Walnut Creek and Concord, Pleasanton, Fremont, and all of a sudden you've got all these places with humongous avenues and blocks of major growth, and Oakland has absolutely nothing. There's no place to shop. We only have a couple of major stores in this town, and they're all in prime areas of Oakland because even though they're getting robbed blind, they won't say anything because they don't want to get out there to scare the people off to come to those stores to shop because they're supposedly in a good area of Oakland. Everybody is being very hush-hush. Nobody's telling the truth out there so people can take a stand and get involved and be part of the solution, and that's wrong. This is our city. This is what we need to be fighting for. Now we'll go on to the A's. Now we'll go on to the Raiders.
Right.
The biggest, having the people that, first of all, it started with Jerry when he blocked Robert Bob for putting the A Stadium downtown, which it should have been down there. Because then you would have built downtown instead of having just restaurants and bars down there. There are no stores down there to shop. Mm-hmm. So, and then you have the Raiders. Well, you know, that the personalities involved hurt where the Raiders were going. And the fact that we've had city council and supervisors trying to run a business and none of them having the business sense to do that. They're politicians. They don't have the education on how to be business people, and they didn't know how to work the terms out in order to keep these teams here. So when you start talking about getting people involved, you need people that have common sense and have some business background in order to work a business. When you got rid of just went blank, Pete's Coffee.
You're talking.
Yeah. Way back when. I mean, those are business people that brought these teams here.
George Vukasin.
And until Don Prada got involved with his game plan and screwed everything up, everything was running smoothly until all of a sudden they decided to change over and put city council people and supervisors on the committee that oversaw the stadium.
In 96.
And the Coliseum. What is wrong with this picture? This is absolutely stupid.
And you were talking about George Vukasin, the CEO of Peerless Coffee, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Peerless. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. So now having Libby and the council negotiate, we don't have any people with brains to negotiate a sale with the A's right now in that whole area. These people don't know what they're doing. The fact that they're willing to give it up for $135 million and it's worth over $200 million, and you know they're going to settle for something stupid because that's the way the city's been moving for the last umpteen years. And here you have something that you can keep the stadium there, keep the A's there, fight to bring the Raiders back, build it up so that we have a name for ourselves, and then instead of building housing all around there, make it a business park where you bring in hotels, businesses, like what they started doing down on the Portland around UPS, where Horizon Beverage went in and built up, and Benjamin Paints went in and built up. You're bringing jobs to this town. This city is desperate for jobs. They are not desperate for more housing because guess what? You keep bringing housing and more people in here, and you've got no place for these people to do anything. There's no jobs. There's no entertainment. There's nothing other than sideshows and shootings and game playing that goes on every day that everybody else has to live with because these people have nothing else to do with their lives and they want the goods to do it with.
We're on with Nancy Sidebotham, candidate for mayor of Oakland, and a question from John Marks. He asks, if you can sit down with Mark Davis, what kind of stadium would you offer the Raiders? Can you offer the Raiders a similar deal like Vegas?
You know, there's no reason for not offering the deal except that Oakland doesn't have the money to back it all up. That's part of Oakland's problem is they have no sales tax base. They have nothing to draw on. They may have millionaires living in this town, but you know something? Everybody's afraid to touch Oakland because Oakland has just been throwing money down the drain and it's been going nowhere. That's why people will not invest in Oakland. We've got Chamber of Commerces that should be working together to bring businesses to Oakland. They're not doing any of that. They haven't been doing that for years.
That's true. I'm sorry.
You've got a Rotary Club that's made up of mostly, yes, it's now interracial. They've got more women in there, black, etc. However, it's mostly made up of white men, most of them belonging to the Chamber of Commerce, and they aren't helping to make changes in here. We need to start looking at what would be the draw if Emeryville can pull it off, if Walnut Creek can pull it off, if Concord can pull it off, and Pleasanton can pull it off, and even Castro Valley, for a smaller place that is, and if it's not a city. The problem is these towns are moving forward because what's happening is Oakland gets these people to come here and start working in Oakland, and then they learn what not to do, and they go to other cities, and they build those cities up. San Jose was built by former Oakland employees that went there.
Really?
Yes.
Did not know. Hey, another question from Malcontent. Malcontent asks, does your guest view ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, as a help or hindrance? Does she want City of Oakland officials to work in lockstep or independently of ABAG? And for those of you who don't know, the Association of Bay Area Governments is tied with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and they're kind of a regional government, I call it fabric, if you will, that looks at transportation issues. What do you think?
Okay, and when we talk about ABAG, again, it goes back who's controlling it. Mm-hmm. Oakland may have a membership in these places, but they have no say. I mean, Libby can play that she's out there talking to all these people and be part of the 3 mayors or the 4 mayors, depending on what subject she's talking on and stuff, except that they play with her. When you're talking about ABAG, you're talking about an organization that is going to work with people that have something to give back. Oakland doesn't have anything to give back. Oakland has sat there and drained itself because they have not bothered to put in enough money and enough resources to build itself up again to be an inviting city, other than people coming here, sleeping, and then going to work someplace else.
Hey, I got to ask you.
We have driven...
Yeah. Go ahead. I just wanted to ask you, what did you think of Libby basically kicking Rebecca off the air quality board, which is another layer, you know?
And why do you think Rebecca's going to run again? Because Rebecca wants payback, just like Cat Brooks wants payback. They're all going after Libby, and I am too. But when you're playing these games, you got to look at who's backing these people and why they're backing them. Again, Oakland is known for its machine politics. We had Don Ferrata running Oakland for years. That's why the rumor was that Ignacio was going to run, because Don Ferrata wanted control of Oakland again. When Jerry came in as mayor, he took over. Don Ferrata was out. Jerry's been running Oakland for the last 4 years. And now all of a sudden, we have Rebecca running, and she's involved with a certain faction that thinks they're going to run Oakland if she gets in here. Because all these people are connected. Rebecca would never have gotten an AC Transit if it had not been for Don Ferrata. So the name of the game is people need to start waking up and to find out who is really running the city and why. Because it's not for the citizens of Oakland that they're running it. They're running it for their own pocketbooks. Any developer that comes here and builds, they take the money and they run. It doesn't stay in Oakland and build Oakland up.
I had Jesse Smith on, who's running for mayor as well, and his focus was the police. What, in your view, should we do, or if anything, about our police department? What do you think of the police commission?
The police commission was set up to get even with the police department. It was not set up for the right reasons. So, I mean, and who's on the police commission makes it a joke. That being said, the police department, you can't have any entity anywhere in the world without some kind of a policing organization to be there, because we've got too many people doing illegal stuff, and there has to be some way of controlling it. And we're not allowed to carry guns. We're not allowed to protect ourselves and do what we need to do in order to keep ourselves safe. And we have to call on somebody that's armed and has the credentials to take care of that kind of business. Whether they show up on time or not depends on how much crime is going on up around in the city. I am very much for the police department. Yes, there's problems, but if you take 100 people and put them all in a room, you're going to have the same divisiveness as you've had in the police department, fire department, you name it, because guess what? That's human nature.
What do you think of...
And you can't stop that, because that's what we've raised in this country.
What do you think of Police Chief Ann Kirkpatrick?
She hasn't been around for a while, so who knows what I think of her. When I asked her a question one time, she couldn't answer it, and it was a very straightforward question. She told me to go talk to the captain that was there.
What was the question? Do you remember?
I mean, the question was, drafts just went out the window. I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay,
so
sure.
I'm not losing it. I got it. I just got to think of the term that I asked her about. And it was something that was set up for years, run under Sergeant Crawford. And as soon as they started dismantling under Jean Quan, the police department, when she was on finance and didn't know what she was doing, and then became mayor, and put people over the Neighborhood Services Division and the PSOs, the police department and everything started falling apart, and community policing became a joke instead of something that was workable and started to build up. So I mean, this is a problem, huh?
I was just going to ask: is that how we got the Celeste Guap problem, which was the Oakland Police Department violation of underage girl?
Yes. How we got that is Oakland was told to hire police. So you go in and you just hire anybody that comes through the door, and they made that mistake. Now they're being very, very selective, and they are checking into anybody and everybody that's coming on board to apply to become a police officer, and their backgrounds are being overly checked. But because Oakland was needed to build their numbers up real quick because crime was getting so bad, they hired practically anybody that came through the door, didn't do the proper background checks they needed to do, and that's why we ended up with the mess we ended up with.
What do you think of how the current mayor's handled the situation? And there was a movie called The Force. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but it shed an interesting light on the relationship between the mayor and the police and Sean Went, who was chief at the time. Your thoughts?
Right, and do you know that Sean Went was the first that had the number one spot when everybody was hiring the new police chief, and Ann Kilpatrick was 3 or 4. She was not up there, and Libby took the pushed Sean out of the way and hired Ann instead. But he was number 1 in the choices that came across the board.
You mean to be rehired?
That
because he was. You mean to be rehired, and she pushed? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he applied for the position, and he was number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But Libby chose to hire Ann Kilpatrick because she wants to hire women that she thinks she can control.
How's that working? Do you know?
Well, let's see. If you look at all the people in Oakland that are here that are still left working, it's people that are diehard, that have been here for years, that are still sticking around, and there are very few of them left. But on the whole, most of them are leaving and retiring very quickly. Libby is not hiring other than outsiders, but she's hiring part-timers. And if she is hiring people to staff departments as a director and stuff, there are people that are getting overpaid that have not a clue. And Oakland is a very unique city. In order to know anything about Oakland, you need to know the history, know the people, know where the money is, to find out where you've been, to find out how you got to where you are right now before you even think you can move forward. And the only time Oakland moves forward is when they got a lot of grant money coming in, and when that grant money dries up, all hell breaks loose.
We're on with Nancy Sidebotham, Oakland Mayoral race candidate. Hey, Barry Lee, if you go out on Twitter, could you please send out a tweet about this with the hashtag Oak meeting, OAKMTG? Thank you. Barry Lee has a question. His question is, do you believe that Oakland needs a convention center to help with the sales tax problem?
Oakland needs all the help it can get. It needs a Costco, which tried here was blocked. Walmart was here, and it was thrown, and it left because it was getting stolen blind out the back door.
Elaborate on that. Can you tell my viewers?
We need to change the laws.
Hey, tell my viewers about that. Talk more about what happened with the Walmart and that as a big box in Oakland. What happened with that, and where was it located? For those who don't know.
A good thing, but yet a bad thing, is Oakland's a union town and has been for years. Since it has been a union town and been strong, it has also been losing its strength over the years because the union's back has been tried to be broken through the politics and through the corporations and stuff. That being said, Oakland years ago, because we had union attorneys on the council or union reps on the council, they passed a law because Costco tried coming here across from the Coliseum over where the car place is, the one, I'm not into cars so much anymore. Right across from the Coliseum there, what's the car dealership right there? That's where Costco wanted to go.
I know what you're talking about. It's the Toyota.
And the city blocked it, and Costco could not come into Oakland. That's when they were trying to leave the original place on Davis Street down there where they built the new store and Home Depot is right now.
The Toyota.
Okay, that being said, then a law was passed to block stores from coming in. When Walmart came in, it was built on port property. It was not built on city property. The problem with Walmart, and it was the highest grossing store in the Bay Area for Walmart, because Oakland is so starved for places to shop that people can go to in their own community without having to travel miles to get to any place, that's how it got built. However, because Oakland has a problem with theft, and that's one reason Mervyn shut down at Eastmont years ago, and JCPenney shut down, and the stores that are here in Oakland that are selling the big grocery stores that are here in Oakland are being stolen out the back door, and nobody will say anything because everybody's afraid of hurting their reputation, and people won't come to the stores to shop. But Walmart left because they couldn't sustain the losses they were having.
A question from Malcontent. What are your thoughts on a lawsuit against the Oakland Raiders seeking monetary damages either with or without the partnership of Alameda County?
You know, if it worked, but you know something, you're going to have to hire an outside attorney to do that job. You can't do it with Oakland City Attorney's Office. They may have some good attorneys left in there, but you need somebody that knows what the hell they're doing if you're going to do that kind of lawsuit. You cannot do it without having the top-notch attorneys doing that. That's part of Oakland's problem is we don't have the resources to do that kind of a fight. And that's and on Oakland buying the county share of the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Libby getting the money for that? Libby's sitting on a ton of money, and she hasn't been hiring anybody. And all of a sudden now they're talking about buying the county share of the Coliseum so Oakland can own it outright.
Well,
Something's seriously wrong, and we need an outside audit of the city of Oakland to find out what is really going on. And that's Oakland's problem, is that we are hiding money in the city. I mean, when you can find $12 million in the fire department that nobody knew was sitting there, there's money being hidden someplace in Oakland, and nobody's talking. And there needs to be a definite outside audit of Oakland. And trust me, when that audit happens, there's going to be a lot of eyes being opened and possibly people going to jail.
Eric Young asked a question around the fact that the attorneys that have made the proposal to sue the Raiders have offered to take this on contingency. And as I understand it, from a couple of people, the city is very close to actually suing the Raiders. We'll see if they do it. But the point is,
right.
The question is, they say that they can and will take it on contingency. What do you think about that?
I think it's an excellent idea. I mean, if they're willing to go forward on this, it's any help that Oakland can get right now, and the people that love the Raiders that are behind it. I think that this is the best. That's an excellent way to go, because you can't rely on the government agencies to take care of business, because they'll only screw it up.
And now the other question out there is basically from me, and that is this: what's your thoughts on this whole? Well, first of all, I want to ask you, since you live in District 6, and there was this there's an election in District 6. Oakland Councilmember Destiny Brooks is running for re-election, and she's running against a number of candidates. But also, last year, she got into an unfortunate skirmish with legendary Black Panther member Elaine Brown that ended with the city paying, or is to pay, $1 million in damages to Brown for a disagreement that turned into a shove, that turned into an injury that happened at Everett Jones Barbecue on the part of Councilmember Brooks pushing the 72-year-old Ms. Brown, which has led to some other unfortunate events from that. But I don't want to belabor that point. What is your view on that situation and Destiny Brooks seeking re-election as Oakland District 6 council member?
You know, they've gone after Desley for a number of times because she's been a thorn in people's sides, because she actually asks the questions, she does her homework,
Yep.
She knows what she's talking about,
Yep.
And she knows the games that are being played.
Yep.
What happened with Elaine Brown and Desley at Everett Jones, nobody's going to really know the truth about what happened. And do I think Desley shoved Elaine Brown? You know, who's to say? We weren't there. The newspaper reports are stated. The judge said that certain people were lying. I mean, and the history of Elaine Brown and her background, a lot of this leaves a lot of questions to be asked. Will Desley get elected again? My bet is she will get elected again. Why? Too many people are running against her. They're going to split the vote. And she's got a backing that will come out of the woodwork and vote for her to get her back in again, whether it's by one vote or 44 or a couple of hundred. My guess, and I'm betting that she'll get back in again.
What do you think about the way Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and Oakland District 4 Councilmember Annie Campbell-Washington went after her?
Well, that's, if you know anything about women, and I'm a woman, and you know anything about cheerleaders, I rest my case.
Nancy, what do you mean by that? I was trying to hold a straight face until you
go talk to a couple of cheerleaders, and you know the history of attitudes and self-centeredness, etc., and then you will know where that's coming from. And for the games to be played out the way they got played out, the door gets opened by certain people on the council and in the mayor that pushes people to the brink to react the way they react. Where they went after Des Lee for claiming that she put $150,000 into a kitchen down by Rainbow Recreation and that she did it illegally. And then they went after Larry Reed. You don't sit there and start going after individuals when you don't look at the whole damn council over the years and all the games they've all played. But because it's so easy to go after one person because they're outspoken and they stand up for themselves, that's where people get in trouble, and that's where Libby went after Rebecca and got her off the air quality board, etc. Because it's a control freak idea, and instead of working with people and making sure that people get and the city work as a whole instead of having a clique working for just certain areas of Oakland that gets all the money when the money's supposed to be used throughout the city. This starts blowing up in your face. So then when people start bringing it to the light and people start hearing the truth, then you need to start coming up with an idea how to squash them and make them look bad. So there's a lot of game playing going on, and this needs to stop.
Hey, so we're on with Nancy Sidebotham, and Nancy, you're getting a lot of converts here. Some of them don't live in Oakland, but some of them do. Actually, a couple I know who live in Oakland are pretty active, so, kudos to you. Hey, Albert 106, who lives at near 106th and International Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken, asked this question. He said, would you still protect immigrants, and would the city continue to be a sanctuary city if you were mayor?
Something, I don't have a problem with a sanctuary city, but we also need to look at where the crime is coming from. And we can't just play both sides of the fence here. We can't just make it one-sided and protect the people that are abiding by the law as well. So that's something that needs to be looked at. And as for protecting immigrants, hey, yo crecí en Panamá. Okay? Viví ahí 16 años de mi vida. And so I come from abroad. I know what it's all about. I've seen people say years out there trying to get a visa to get into this country. So the name of the game is we need to start looking about how we can be there for everybody and not just make it one-sided. Because you know something? A lot of this is hurting locals. A lot of this is hurting people that have lived here for years that can't get jobs because other people are coming in here, will take less wages and work under the table and stuff and hurt people that can't get jobs because people don't want to hire them because they don't want to pay the going wage that they need to be paying. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. And that's where the Chamber of Commerce has come into play, so that these business people, and Oakland does not have business leadership, and the business people need to come together and start working so that we have a center where all this can start bringing jobs and businesses back to the city so that we all have a good place to stand with.
We're on with Nancy Sidebotham. Hey, just FYI, tonight, I know there's on the agenda a resolution for the city to raise $105 million right now. And I asked a council member about it. I'm not going to say who. They said it was going to cost us $172,000 to set up. But what I haven't gotten anyone to tell me is what that money is going to be used for. And so maybe it's toward the Coliseum. I don't know. But I'm going to have a follow-up on it on OaklandNewsNow.com and Zenny62 as well by video. But just an FYI for you out there. My other question to you is, you have lived in District 6 for how long?
I've lived here since 1980.
And over the time, would you say that, because would you say it's gotten better or worse or just different?
You know, my favorite place to look to see what changes are happening in the district is down at International and 73rd Avenue. I always watch that street corner to see who is sitting there waiting for the bus and who's crossing the street to find out what changes and what ethnicity is moving into this area. Has it gotten better? It hasn't gotten worse because it's had its bad times. But District 6 used to have the Coliseum in the district, and then Don Parada and Larry and Nate Miley blew that up and moved it to District 7 so that Larry could control it, because guess what? That was part of Don Parada's machine, and the council people in District 6, other than Nate Miley, who was, managed to sell us out by giving the Coliseum away, nobody's been here to fight for that. The only thing that in District 6 that's viable right now is Eastmont, and that doesn't say very much.
Hey, what do you think should happen to the Coliseum? Should it be, as the mayor expressed to me one day, such that Oracle Arena is torn down, or should it be retained? What in your estimation, should be done with it?
Personally, I think that the Coliseum, that whole area from Hagenberger to the airport to San Leandro Boulevard to High Street, should be an industrial park area. And I think the Coliseum and the Oracle Arena should be revamped, the sewer issue being replaced and fixed, and so that people don't have to worry about going to the bathroom and sitting in this stuff. And that should be a big location. I mean, every time you build housing, you lose business. Look at what happened to West Oakland. West Oakland used to be the industrial area for Oakland, and now they put all these housing in there, and everybody is trying to get rid of the trucks, the businesses down there, because they're claiming they've got asthma, too much noise, too much dirt, too much this, that, and the other. If you want to bring business to a town that doesn't have anything, then you need to set an area aside so that business has some place to go. You've got the railroad tracks there, you've got BART there, you've got 880. That would save truckers going all the way down and parking in West Oakland and mucking that area up because everybody complains about it. And they can use the train and get a new station built there so that they can start putting stuff on the train and shipping it down to the port so that they can start moving things. But we need to start looking at every other city around here has a business park. Oakland's the only one that doesn't have a business park.
Hey,
and we're paying the price.
You eliminated something, because although I 1 million support concerns regarding climate damage, we have now 24 years of not replacing the jobs that were lost in West Oakland due to the closure of the Army base. And now we have the city, as of a few hours ago, announcing, although they haven't filed it yet, an appeal to the ruling that killed the coal ban. What if you're mayor? How would you handle this problem? Because Libby's put out this problem, that she's going to fight and maintain great environment and equity and everything else. And what goes through my mind, and I need help with this, is that Libby's known Phil and Tagami, who's the head of the California Capital Investment Group, and the partnership that's building the terminal. And she knows, the city knows, that the terminal, and there's documents that prove that the terminal was going to handle a number of different commodities, including coal. Betsy Lake, who was just hired, it has her signature on it, on a document that says that. And now she's, working as an employee for the city. And yet she was a consultant to the city at the time. And yet it seems to me that, Libby could sit down with Phil one-on-one and say, let's make a deal and hammer this out, rather than hauling the city back into court for an appeal that I personally don't think it's going to win. As mayor, what do you think about this? And as mayor, how would you solve this problem?
Okay, the first thing is you got to go back to the history of Phil Tagami and whose machine he's part of, and that's Jerry Brown. This may have been a federal ruling, but trust me, with Trump and how he is devastating the Arctic, and he's building coal back up again, and Jerry pushing this because Phil is the one that got the money through Jerry in order to make this happen. The fact that Phil owes the city and been forgiven over $33 million. He's still in the Rotunda building. He still owns a parking building. this man has been given a lot. Alameda kicked him out and would not let him in there because they knew what he really was. But Oakland has continually given Phil an open hand to do whatever he felt like he could do. He went and made this deal without talking to the community and getting what, $57 million from the coal people in Utah that he's bringing this stuff from, and he never brought that to the council until after the fact. He doesn't want to lose that money. But I can tell you, if the city loses this case, one of the things that needs to be paid back is that $33 million that he's been forgiven all these years, because that needs to go back into the community to protect it from all the stuff that's going to be coming through there, with all the trains coming through there with the coal and stuff. And Richmond's already having a problem with it.
Yeah, full disclosure, I
should. There's, like I said, in order to understand all this, you need to know the history of the players to know why you're where you are. And moving forward, we need better attorneys to handle this, because our city attorney isn't good enough to do it anymore.
Full disclosure, I'm one of the people who advocated for Phil getting the $32 million to build the rotunda, which I have to say, I thought he did an outstanding job.
Oh, that's fine. Zinni, I'm not saying he hasn't done a good job. The problem is that he has been given carte blanche with all of this because of who he's been connected to. The rest of us can't get any of this. We got to fight our way to get anything done. But he just walks in because he's related related to a past council person. Mm-hmm. Rumor has it. So they feel that they can give Phil. I mean, I met Phil when he was a nobody, when I was president of the Rotary Club, the Sunset Rotary Club. Mm-hmm. So I knew when he was a nobody before he got into where he got into, and whose ass he kissed to get to where he is. And how many commissions has he been on where he lasts exactly 1 month and then drops off just so he can build his resume? What is wrong with this picture? This man has done absolutely nothing for the city as a whole, other than when Jerry was mayor. He's the one that made the appointments for the planning commission and other things, because Jerry used him to do that because Jerry didn't know what he was doing. So that being said, when we're talking about the coal, we need attorneys that can fight this and fight it for the community, because guess what? The community is going to be to pay the price. Phil's going to make money. It's not going to stay here in Oakland. I can tell you that now, because none of these developers and none of these people have brought it back to stay here in Oakland. If they've done anything and it looks good, their pockets are lined.
Well, I have to say, as a friend of his, that I love and respect both of you. And it's just that I don't want to say this because I don't want to steal your thunder or anything like that, but I just simply want to note that Phil has taken upon himself to build a project to save jobs at the Army base. That was our edict, and people have forgotten that.
Nobody's forgotten that. But the problem is, if you're going to build something up at the Army base, do it with stuff that's going to work. China is shutting down their coal, okay? Because they can't. They've got so much smog there. They're walking around in masks and stuff. These countries are not taking coal in like everybody's predicting that they're supposed to be taking it in. You see this on the news all the time. They want to clean up their air. They want to clean up what's going on over there. We can't sit there and take something on when we're talking about climate change, mm-hmm. and we're continuing to add to it.
But Nancy,
this is not something that Phil is doing because he's being a nice guy and he's giving jobs. No, this is because it's lining his pockets.
But Nancy, I mean, look, there's a gigantic business aspect to this, yeah. But the point is that the terminal itself is not only for coal. From the start, it was supposed to have been for a number of different commodities. The trouble with developing the Army base, originally it was supposed to be offices, and then it was thought that couldn't work because of the market. The Army base, and I have the plans at home myself, has been through about 8 different iterations. And it's a matter of finding something that the market will take. And I mean, it's one thing to have these ideas, right? But then it's nothing to execute the ideas. And in Phil's case, he found it hard to get without any meaningful city assistance. And you need that for a project of that size. Let's just face it, you do, okay? Because originally what a number of people wanted to do, which I objected to then and I object to now, is, and because it would have cost us government money. We would have had to pay $200 million back to the government, at least in damages, okay? Because it wasn't what the government asked for. we wanted to have a new town at West Oakland. We wanted to have offices and casinos and movie studios. All of that fell through. I mean, everything fell through. Nothing happened at all. And so what happened was that Phil developed a relationship with the Bowie people, and finally, because of the state of Utah's interest in coal shipments, found a commodity handling organization and group, that could do a deal. It was within what the city could happen. Now, what happened was that if you go back through videos that I've taken with people, conversations I've had with people over the years, the city was always aware of this, and if they weren't, then they weren't paying attention. There were even people who, within the city, and Fred Blackwell was over it, who wanted it not to be said on camera, I'm just being honest, that coal was going to be one of the commodities that was shipped. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Okay?
Yes, I am.
This was the city. These are city individuals that interact with the council on a daily basis. Some of the council people that are still there right now. So my point is that we never had a come to Jesus meeting that said, okay, here is what this terminal is going to do. Yet, going back to the days of the late Richard Winning, who was Alameda County Council, and then he was on the Port Commission, and you know Richard, and
he was city attorney in Oakland.
And he was city attorney in Oakland. Tried to fight to keep the Raiders here as well. I'm a mentor of mine, and a number of people. Okay. But my point is that during that time, we were always talking about the city and the port needing a deep break bulk terminal. If we had it, it would put us at number one on the West Coast, and we've talked about it for years, and that's essentially what's being built there. All right. Now I have a video with Fred Blackwell that you can, if you go to Zenny62 on YouTube, folks, you can just type Fred Blackwell, and it's an Oakland Army base interview, and he says in the Army base, get this, Nancy, he says, and I quote, this is August 12th of 2016. He says that he mentions that iron ore, not coal, but iron ore, which is kind of a brother to coal, will be one of the commodities that's shipped. He mentioned grain, and he said, and quote, other things. All right. Now, he also said that because these commodities would be shipped by rail and then transferred by rail by machinery to containers, that it was, and I quote, and he said this, a gift to the environmental justice community. That's what he said. Okay? So, my point is that we've had as you know, because of ranked choice, we had an amazing turnover, and not just in council members, but also in city staff. And so we've lost that institutional memory that said, hey, under Deanna Santana, who was our city administrator, we signed these documents that approve this. And many of the documents reflect what is being built today. They actually support it. The due diligence and development agreement, the disposition development agreement, there are 4 development agreement related documents that reflect that I'm wondering if anybody bothered to read, So in all this, what bothers me is, Phil did a lot of things. He built a lot of relationships and almost drove himself to a heart attack. But it took him 10 years to do it, okay? And he's a model for establishing relationships to get to where you have to be in business and in life. And he's helped a lot of people along the way as well. And I say that because a lot of people in business, the big problem we've had in Oakland, Nancy, historically, I have a lot of history here. I've been here in Oakland since '74. But prior to Phil, we've had developer after developer after outside developer. There's always someone on the outside we trusted. Take on the job of the Rotunda, which is the old Liberty House. We as a city spent $30 million on those developers, and we got nothing. Nothing.
That's right.
Nothing. And so no one ever gives Phil credit, although I guess you did give Phil credit, for at least getting the thing right in terms of the Rotunda, and also the Fox, okay? Development deals, particularly in our town, which is a crab barrel town where it seems like people are always trying to pull each other down rather than lift each other up, is really hard. And it really is hard to be that person that does that thing. that everybody loves. And, so my point is, how can we get over this where we're always shooting each other? How can we not give room for someone to be truly successful and do well and yet talk to them directly? Just say, hey, you know what? I have an issue, but then also rather than shouting, get to a point where we can get to yes. Because I don't see that people are getting to yes. And I'm saying as mayor, can you help us get there? I'm asking.
Hey, you know something? I'm willing to listen to all sides. I'm willing to sit down and make sure that what's being said is going to be effective. But sitting there and just saying that, Phil has made promises and et cetera, has he started paying rent back on all these buildings yet?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, actually, he has.
So the name of the game is he's been getting a lot of freebies.
Or he tells me he has.
To do what he's done. Okay? He's been getting a lot of freebies to do what he's done, and he has not paid back anything. And then he went out and he found the coal because he needed somebody. And guess what? Utah was looking because they needed an outlet because they needed to keep jobs in Utah and keep the coal mines going. Right. So it happened to fall in his lap. Seattle shut it down. Tacoma shut it down. Said no, they weren't going to deal with it.
Politics.
Pittsburgh's now having problems with it when they're shipping the stuff through there right now, and they're having problems right now. So the name of the game is if you can make it and guarantee that there's not going to be any fallout, and there's no way you can do that because coal is a loose material that blows really well in the wind, unlike ore.
Right, but that's my point.
So when you're talking
what I'm
about,
getting at is
I know, but I'm saying, but I'm saying you've got a whole community that is against this, fought real hard for this, and it was on technicalities that the judge threw it out. So it depends on whether they can clean up their act and how they present it to the court again when they do the appeal, if they do the appeal. Yeah. Then Phil needs to come up. I mean, if I would have gone forward with the buildings, the casino, and the theater and stuff, because you know something? If you build it, they will come. But we're too scared to build where they come. And every time we build, we screw it up because we let those people sit by the wayside and we don't sit there continue to work with them and protect them. That's part of Oakland's problem.
But the reason
we say yes, 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 and then we walk away and let them hang.
But Nancy, the reason why we didn't get casinos is because, we couldn't get the government to back it because it wasn't following the edict of replacing well-paying, low-skilled jobs in West Oakland. You have to be reminded of that.
Understand?
Okay.
Understand, but again, we have no jobs anyway.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you have nothing for people to go and work at or even apply for, and the joke about all this is we can say we're going to build jobs in Oakland and bring jobs to Oakland, except that everybody and their uncle in all these cities around us are going to be looking for the same jobs because we're all having the problem.
Yeah, but
it's just that Oakland doesn't have any way of sustaining the population that they have because we have no outlet for these people to get the jobs at.
But Nancy, the outlet was supposed to be the jobs that the bulk terminal provides. Coal aside, okay? Coal aside. This is where.
But that's going to be. But again, Vinny, that's Teamster.
But Nancy,
whoa,
Nancy,
they're not going to let non-union onto that location.
Nancy, my point is, in some cases they will if it's negotiated. But here is where I put my economic development cap on. I have to say this, okay? This is an example of how we don't know how to do economic development. If we knew how to do economic development,
we don't.
No, hold on a second. The city would jump in, okay, and say with Phil, hey, look, we're going to help you find an organization around the world to work with. Maybe, rather than just having him do all this work and the city come up and say no. That's bullshit. Okay? It's complete bullshit.
Understand, but again,
it doesn't matter. No, I don't care.
But that's the short-sightedness of Oakland.
Right. That's my
Oakland
point.
does not look beyond what's going to affect the politician in office at the time.
But it's worse than that.
It needs to look beyond that.
It's worse than that. They're lazy. They're fucking lazy. Okay?
Well,
this is me talking.
I agree with that.
All right? And my point is that if people actually did some work, rather than sitting around and talking all the time and throwing stones at people who are doing the work, Oakland would be a better city. You would have those 7,000 people at, most of them in West Oakland, homeless. And we're just building tough
on the
sheds.
Same wavelength, Benny, when it comes to economic development and we're taking jobs and working this out, like I said, there's a way around this. We just got to find it.
Yeah, we finish building West Oakland. We find, if we don't want Phil to work with Bowie or whatever, we find an organization that will pay and do that. And also something else
Right.
too. And here's a cold fact, because I heard Nancy, who I happen to I like her take. I disagree with her, but Nancy what is her name?
Nidell?
No. It's
Nidell?
the other Nancy who was on the Landmarks Commission.
O'Malley?
No, not Nancy.
Oh,
Not
I don't
the
know.
DA.
No, I can't. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. Reisman?
Not Nancy Reason. No. It's another one. The other one.
I'll think of it.
Anyway, because you and I were having a friendly joust on Facebook. But the whole point is that, I mean, I like her a lot. But my point is that what I disagree with is that we have to have basically what I was saying to her and what I'm saying in this instance is that she said, "Oh, coal's going down worldwide." The sad truth of the matter is that coal, in terms of consumption, is stabilized, and because of the United States decade after decade after decade work in making sure that other countries had market economies, guess what?
Yep.
They're building, they're building over there at the time that
Sure.
we're trying to shut them down. We can't be the world's police as easily as we want to in the way that we're trying to do it. But that's another story, okay? My point is this.
Yeah, it's a whole other story.
There is demand out there for that commodity. Don't kid yourself. It's there. And it's huge.
No. I know there is. I'm not faulting that. I know there is. But eventually, with climate change and the way it's going, that's going to be a dwindling supply coming down the pike because people need to change how they're burning this stuff and what's going into the air and what's causing.
Whoa. You said you said two different things. You said
okay.
You said two different things that are fascinating. You said, first of all, it's that the market's going to go down, but you said because people are going to need to change. Nancy, I got some bad news for you. People are not going to just shift like that. We may want them to because we're the United States, but you know what the third world countries say to us all the time? Do you know what the newly industrialized countries say to us all the time? Hey, how come you are trying to dictate what we do, and when you did it, just because you don't want to have it anymore, you're telling us we can't have it? And so guess what? They keep building, Nancy.
I understand.
Okay?
I understand.
They keep building.
I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you.
And what I'm saying is that
I agree with you. This is bigger. This is bigger than just West Oakland and us. It is a bigger issue that is a world-dominated discussion that needs to be had of how it affects. Because guess what? What did I see today? That they're burning forests right and left.
Yep.
All over the world and guess what? That's our oxygen, but nobody's talking about that.
Right, absolutely. But my point is that why can't we locally, rather than this whole degenerating into shouting matches and all this, why can't we use, if the Bay Area is the center of the tech industry in the world, and we have, as Steve Loeb said to me in a conversation earlier today, the Bay Area is the most successful region in the world. Why can't we find a tech solution to this coal issue? Why can't we tech our way out of it?
And you know something? If people find the right people to do it, they can.
Hey, so I think we just got to. I think we got to an agreement, Nancy. We could solve it.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. I mean, I'm saying there's more to this, and people need to find a way to work together on this to come up with a solution, and not continue to fight each other. Except that, but when Phil first started this, he lied to a lot of people. Okay, he did not tell the truth.
I don't recall
him lying. And had he been upfront when he was doing this, like I said, there's more to all of this, just like with Desley and Elaine. Mm-hmm. There's more to this that's going on that we aren't privy to, and that's part of the problem. And if it was more open and above board, we could deal with it. And again, it has to do with who the lawyers are involved and who's calling who names, because people are pissed off. They got pissed off the planning commission or whatever.
As a guy who's been involved in this, and Keith Carson put me on the ballot meter base use committee in '93, specifically with respect to West Oakland. I worked in economic development for Oakland since coming from 1988. Trying to get a parallel incubator built in West Oakland. Wrong. There are a number of documents that told the city of Oakland that coal would be one of the commodities. Phil didn't lie to anybody. It's in. I'm happy to show it to you. Happy to actually. You know what I'll do? I'll email you the document. It's also not only that.
Okay.
It's on my site. I actually wrote a blog post about it, saying the city knew, and it's actually on Google News right now. The city knew this. Okay. What happened was that the one person we haven't talked about in our conversation to this point, that brought his money into this is Tom Steyer. And Tom Steyer emerged, what, 83 or 80, not 83, excuse me, but 2013 or 14, throwing millions of dollars, he's a billionaire, but throwing millions of dollars around with respect to climate change. And he's bought a lot of politicians and created what one person called the climate industrial complex, where they bully people into thinking a certain way rather than using a tech approach to get us to a better world, you know? And I mean, they haven't actually helped move this whole thing along. If anything, because their tactics are a lot like the right wing, but they're left, it hasn't helped anything. I mean, they create opposition just by their bullying. I don't like to be bullied myself.
I know. Hey, well, you know me well enough to know I don't like it either. So
no, not at all. Now,
and I don't bully anybody. The name of the game is I'd rather work it out than sit there and point fingers. Except that, like I said, there's history involved here, and that also needs to be brought into play.
Now, moving along in our conversation. First of all, how are we doing on time with respect to you? Because this is fun.
I'm fine. I'm
awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's get to know Nancy the person. Nancy, what's your favorite restaurant in Oakland, or what do you like to do?
My favorite restaurant, I don't usually go out that often. Mm-hmm. I like to do my own cooking.
Oh, what do you cook? What do you cook?
Oh, anything, you name it, I cook it. Other than fish, I'm not into fish.
And so, over time, I mean, do you count? Do you enjoy movies? Do you have a favorite movie?
Do I have a favorite movie?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, my favorite movies that I like watching over and over again are Harry Potter.
Ah, which, just the first one, or just the whole series?
I like all of them. They all have something to say. I enjoy all of them. I like just escaping into them.
Wow. And I'm gonna get these are interesting comments coming up. Kevin Cady says, "It seems like we live in an era where success is nothing more than a privilege that is reserved for the entitled few at the expense of the many disadvantaged." And Malcontent says, "Steve Lowe is wrong. Perhaps this area is, quote, most successful as a crucible for corporate profits, but not as a venue for functional economic development for its working class residents." And then John Mark says, "Nancy would be the fire to fight under to light under Oakland." And then he follows up with, "Wow, she's on." Full disclosure, John Marks lives in Kelso, Washington, not Oakland, California. But hey, he might want to fly down and campaign for you because, hey, we got Stacey Abrams. She won here, Democrat representative of governor of Georgia. So, and she had a lot of outside help. So, hey, that could happen with you. Which reminds me of this question. How are you? Do you have a website, or if someone wants to help you in your run for mayor, how can they do that?
I have got to set that up. I have not set it up because we're getting closer to now taking out papers. I have taken the 501 out so I can start raising money, but I have not done anything about it because we just got out of tax season, so that took up a good chunk of my time. And so I need to sit down this week, and my website is nancysidebotham.com, but it needs to be updated. Everything on there is still pertinent, but it needs to be updated to today versus 2 years ago.
John Marks said,
I need to do.
John Marks said he's going to fly down and help you. He said I would. You can actually review these comments on the live stream later. So, hey, John Marks, you're held to it.
Okay.
All right. Now, hey, something else.
Well,
thank
you, John.
You heard that, John. Yeah. Something else is that not that I'm going to close the conversation, but I want to thank you for one of the finest conversations I've had about Oakland in a long time. But
no problem. But something, just letting you know, Zinni,
yes, ma'am.
I have loved this city, and like I tell people, and I told people that have called me regarding running against Lee, I said, if you really want to run for office, you need to know the history, you need to know where the money is, and you need to know who the players are, because the same players that have been playing this game for the last 30-some-odd years are still playing it. They haven't disappeared. And in order to get to where you are today, to figure out how you think you're going to make changes tomorrow, you need to know what the game is.
That's right. Hey, what do you think Lauren Taylor, who's running for District 6 against Desley?
There's one gentleman that I met the other night. I think his name is Lauren, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. There's a Marlo. There's a Natasha, I believe.
Natasha Middleton.
And I think there's one other. Yeah, and I think there's one other person.
Yeah, Natasha, who worked for Libby, actually. But interestingly, Libby is not endorsing her. And Kamala Washington is endorsing Natasha. Said she would endorse Lauren, but it's all confusing to me. But what do you think about Lauren?
Who I think about who?
Lauren Taylor. Do you think he's a guy?
He seemed like a nice guy. He emailed me and wants to get together and talk, and I said sure, but I haven't gotten back to him yet because I've had other things that I had to take care of. But I'll sit down and talk to people. But the name of the game is if you want. The problem is most of these people, except for one, are coming from Maxwell Park. They're not coming from other parts of the district. Mm-hmm. So, and Maxwell Park's always been a thorn in Desley's side. So, that's one of the things that needs to be looked at.
Terrell Dodson, he says, I think talking about you, Nancy, is a great candidate, but way too real for Oakland. Too much of the old guy.
I know. Hey, that's why I enjoy running, because I get to tell the truth, and I got nothing to lose, and if people would get out of their ho-hum, vote the incumbent in because they're cute and they know how to play a little game and smile a lot, people need to realize you need to ask the hard questions and ask for answers that are realistic and not sit there and get promises, which is what's happening right now. All of a sudden now everybody's making promises of what they're going to do, and they're having all these meetings and making people think that, they're going to do something when the election's right around the corner. And guess what? It's all going to disappear and nothing's going to happen. We're still going to have the potholes and major traffic issues.
Is it that, and speaking of which, we have a building boom and a housing boom like we've never had before. And a number of people think that's a good thing. What say you?
I don't say, it depends on where the housing boom is happening. And with this housing boom and the fact that Uber and these new for-hire cars are all out there and stuff, you're mucking up the freeways. You're causing mayhem from what? To get on the freeway in my area, you better get on there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in order to get downtown, because if not, you're not moving for the next 4 hours.
Wow. That seems like it's, hey, come to Atlanta. Woo. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, and I understand. And it's not that, yes, we need a better transit system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you know something? Again, you need to know the history of BART. You need to know the history of AC Transit in order to understand why people don't ride these vehicles.
But hey, BART just expanded to Warm Springs. Now they're out to Antioch. You think that's a bad thing?
Right. And that's fine. And those people will ride it because they're safe. When you come to Oakland and stuff, people don't want to get on these contraptions.
And yet, do you know John? Do you know John Jones III?
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah, John Jones III says that. I tried to get him on this show, but John, you owe me, man. But John has been text vocal. He hasn't said this, but I can imagine him saying it. But he says that the bus rapid transit has ruined East Oakland, and he says they're boarded up after boarded up stores. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the BRT is what he's talking about on International Boulevard.
Yes.
I mean that's a big joke. Again, it's money coming in that from the state and stuff, and from certain factions, because they want to make this happen when other cities turned it down. And what businesses are on East 14th, I mean, you go down there, you got to drive probably 10 blocks before you can make a left turn to cross to go into the neighborhood, or to make a U-turn on East 14th to come, or International Boulevard to come back the other way, because everything is so screwed up down there. And people that are going to be coming from San Leandro, trust me, are not going to be getting off anywhere in East Oakland. They're going to be getting on and hoping to heck they make it downtown as quickly as possible. And the reason I can say this is I have 2 clients that happen to have the International Boulevard route on AC Transit, and they're held up at least once a week.
Wow.
And have to put up with people getting on and refusing to pay and giving them a hard time, and they just keep their mouths shut and let them do what they're going to do just to make sure they don't get killed.
Why don't they just make it free? I mean, we talked about free transit for years,
Well, of course, but remember, government works on gouging people for their money. That's part of the problem. And we used to have a transit system with the trains and stuff in Oakland, and they tore them all out to build a Chevy plant because cars were going to be the big thing. So guess what? We're going back to where we were years ago, and history repeats itself. What's wrong with this picture?
Ain't it the truth? Ain't that the truth? Completely. Hey,
we keep going around and around and around. We don't learn from any of this, and everybody makes promises, and then we have new people coming in that don't know anything about where we've been, and they don't understand why nothing's moving forward. It's because we are bound by a few people that are controlling everything at the expense of the whole, and that's the problem, and that needs to change.
Hey, I got to ask you, because a little earlier in our conversation, you were talking about how you thought Phil was Jerry Brown's friend, but also, Jerry Brown endorsed Libby, right? And so now they're basically...
He did. That's how Libby...
And now, now they're warring. They're warring.
Zinni, as soon as Jerry endorsed Libby, we didn't even have to go to the polls because everybody thinks Jerry's a god. Mm-hmm. Jerry should be in jail. Jerry's an actor, okay? He is no god. He is not the Jerry that was first governor of California. He is a guy that is a developer's dream at the expense of Oakland. And Oakland's paid the price because of Jerry's game playing. And putting Libby in office was the biggest mistake next to Gene Kwan.
How do you react to the idea, my idea, that Libby is unbeatable because Donald Trump is talking about her because the sanctuary city issue?
That's just putting Libby's name out there. It depends on who you talk to make Libby. Libby is using this because she's got nothing else to fall back on. And the fact that she played this game and put it out there, that's just bringing notoriety. It isn't helping Oakland. If anything, it's hurting Oakland. Instead of getting help from the right places and stuff, we're putting out there. I mean, you're vindictive against council members. You're vindictive against neighbors that you don't particularly like. You tell people to bring the homeless into their homes, and, oh, by the way, not in mine because I have no room. And then you have Rebecca coming up that she's going to start charging fines of $6,000 on empty houses, empty lots, empty apartments, blah, blah, blah. What is wrong with this picture? I mean, where is it that tells people that you want to come to this town because it's something that it's a city that welcomes you? Instead, every time you come here, your taxes are going up. You're paying through the nose. We have nobody working in the city of Oakland that can do the job because they're all part-timers.
Folks, I'm nodding my head because I do agree. She's absolutely right.
And we have a union. We have unions that go out on strike that shouldn't have gone out on strike. And we have people paying the price because guess what? Libby wants to get even with all of them. What's wrong with this picture?
Yeah. No, it's not a good picture at all. We have a city that's going.
No, it's not. And it's not. Not when you have over 400,000 people, and they all need attention. And you're only paying attention downtown because that's the only place that's getting the roads resurfaced, all the work being done, because that's where all this grant money's coming in. And we're paying the price. I mean, the library's asking for another library measure being put on the ballot so people will pass it for $75 a year. And now the city tonight at the council is raising the fees on the library on measure M, N, Q, and Z, and I think one other, by 3.2% because they need to cover their rear end, and yet the libraries lost their money under the last measure because nobody wrote in there that money was only to be used for certain things at the library, and the city found a loophole and cut the library's funding, where all the measure that we passed, we're double paying now. And yet there's no money being spent in the city. Last budget hearing, we had council members wanting 2 crews to go out there and pick up illegal dumping.
Right.
2 crews.
Right.
Libby shut it down along with Barbara Parker's help because that's what Barbara Parker does best. She does what she's told. He comes in there and screws everything up.
Barbara Parker's our city attorney, folks.
Yes, Barbara Parker's our city attorney. Like I said, our city attorney is something leaves a lot to be desired.
I didn't mean to shut you down. I just wanted to make sure that people were informed about that.
I understand. But when you're looking at all of this, who are you helping? You've still got potholes all over the city. You've got streets that need to be repaved, and nobody's doing any of that. They're buying equipment, and it's just sitting there because you don't have the staff to manage and drive it and take care of it. You've got people leaving the city right and left because we're the lowest paid city in the Bay Area, so they're going looking for other jobs in other cities. You've got people that have lived here for years that are moving to Nevada, Oregon, and out of here as fast as they can go because they don't want to put up with what Oakland's going through because Oakland's has been going downhill so badly that everybody's fed up because they don't see any way to fight it to bring it back up again. There's very few of us out here that are fighting to bring Oakland back again. We didn't lose the Raiders because it was something that needed to happen. It was lost because we don't have the leadership to be able to negotiate and make this happen and bring it back.
But you do realize you do realize you just made a statement basically rubber stamping why the Raiders left. I mean,
that's why they left. It's because we don't have a business mentality in this town. We have nobody that understands business. We have attorneys all over the place. None of them are on the bar are in the bar anymore because they've let that go. But yet they're out there shooting their mouths off about being attorneys and stuff and making statements and trying to do legalese stuff, but they know nothing about bringing business and how to negotiate business deals in order to keep Oakland a viable city, and we keep losing everything. We should not have lost the Warriors. We should not have lost the Raiders.
True.
And the A's are staying here because they see a chunk of change because there's nobody to compete against, and Oakland's falling for this instead of saying, you want this land? You pay $200 million for it, and you write off that $135,000 that we supposedly owe you.
But here's my question with the A's. I happen to be a proponent of having a ballpark at Howard Terminal. I think it's a fantastic idea.
And that's fine.
All right.
I think it's a fantastic idea, but I don't want to see the Coliseum turn into housing.
And I was going to say, I'm not, however, against a Coliseum buildup. All right. I really am. I'm going to have to make a choice. Okay. So you know what? Right here, I'll tell you what. I'll choose the Coliseum to maintain it for the A's. Period. And the reason.
Okay.
Oh, and the reason why I say that is, and it pains me to say it, is that first of all, building that waterfront is an awesome opportunity. It would really be an economic development crown jewel. You know. But
sure,
and I say this 3 times, in the Coliseum, we have one of the few in California nexuses of sports that have to be maintained. And here's why: because you have sports in today's society, from a business standpoint, is one of the few, if not the only, business operation that, from a media perspective, done right, serves as an export of what it does to the world, to what the city does to the world. Let me give you a prime example. The NBA Finals will be in Oakland, as you and I both know. Tomorrow night, there will be, for the 4th straight year in a row, a party at Lake Chalet. And you should go, Nancy. Tell them you're running for mayor. I'll let you in.
Okay.
Lake Chalet does a lot of money, not just from the parties, but also from the exposure that Lake Chalet gets from being the place where ESPN has its telecasts as well as Fox Sports. That's all in Oakland.
Okay.
That's all in Oakland. And yet the city, by contrast to Atlanta, cannot tell you what the total economic impact benefit of all the sports activity is in Oakland. You realize that we've had economic activity in Oakland around sports since the 1960s, and yet we've never had an estimate of total economic impact. Yet, by contrast, Atlanta, they can tell you that $5 billion annually is generated by sports-related activities. The fact that I said that and I'm an outsider means that Atlanta's and the region have done a fantastic job of communicating that. And yet,
and they have business people that understand what the hell they're talking about.
Right, absolutely. How come we don't have it in Oakland? I mean,
That's
I don't
Oakland's problem is, remember, City, Oakland's a machine-run city, and whoever is in charge controls what is being put out there and what is allowed to be studied and related to in order to do anything. The business people that work for the city of Oakland that have tried to bring business to Oakland, they're a handful compared to the transportation department because there's so much grant money coming in that the streets are getting all redone thanks to the grant money, et cetera. So it depends on who's pushing what and whose favor this all falls under. And that's why Oakland's got the problem. They've never had business people on the city council other than Henry Chan, and he was a lone wolf.
I love Henry.
And
awesome.
could barely hold it because he didn't have the votes.
Right.
Without Dick Spees having been there. But that being said.
Yeah, those are great people. Dick Spees was the Oakland District 4 council member, and Dick Spees and I, when I hold on a second. Sorry, I heard something. Dick Spees and I, I'm gonna have to wrap up myself because I have to check personally on my mom's doing downstairs, but
right.
Dick Spees and I
didn't want to bring that open on the because I was going to ask how your mom's doing, but that's another story.
Oh, she's great. No, she's great. She's much better, thank you. But Dick Spees, when he was the Oakland District 4 council member, and I, in '96, when I worked for L.U. Harris, got together and we brought Cirque du Soleil. We in the still of the night, sweet talked Cirque du Soleil into coming over from San Francisco to Oakland. I loved it. And that's the kind of economic development, partnerships and activities I don't see anymore. I don't see council members doing economic development. I see them passing laws about things we can't do, but I don't see anybody of them going out and actually getting businesses and trying to create a sustainable economy. I don't see that at all.
Not in Oakland.
No.
Not in Oakland.
No, not at all. Hey,
never. As long as I've been here, and under under Leo Pizzell, they had the Economic Development Commission.
Yep, I had.
And
Leo,
they killed that one off.
I had Leo on here too.
Okay.
You know what, Nancy? I gotta get you and Leo on at the same time.
I'd love to.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, Leo brought the house down when he was on. Oh my God, I'll send you the link. That was classic. I mean, it started off really slow.
Good.
Then about 20 minutes into it, man, he just went into orbit.
Hey, he knows his stuff. I mean, they've all been through stuff that they've had to deal with and stuff. But when it comes to Oakland, those guys know their thing, their stuff.
That's right. Hey, I wanna thank you for the time. I know it's 10:13 your time. It's 1:13 out here, and gonna have you back, and you can.
Thank you.
And you should take this when you put your website update. You should take the embed and embed this, and people can hear where you're coming from.
Bert, send me the link, please, because I'm not writing anything down.
You got it, definitely. All right. Hey, stick around, Nancy.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
okay.
Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, you stick around, folks. I'm going to close this live stream for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night with another rousing Zenny 62 Live. And again, check out Oakland News Now, my newest blog. Bookmark it. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I promise you, you're going to get information you never got before from any place else. All right? And Malcontent says, Z, thanks to you and your guests. Thank you, Malcontent. And Malcontent says Nancy answered his question about A-Bag and everything else. Stick around, Nancy. But hey, everybody, I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, John Marks. Thank you, CW Gaming. CW Gaming, you're late to the party. My goodness, it's 1:14 a.m. What is it? See you tomorrow, CW. You got to come back early. You okay? Come on, all right? I'll see you guys and gals. Everybody. All right, see ya. Bye-bye. See you guys. See you tomorrow. See you. You got it.